TOA community, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Robert Linkul, trainingtheolderadult.com, and this is Wednesdays with Robert, episode number 30. We are going to talk about some cold plunging today. This is a very relevant and very interesting topic. I proposed this question to my clients the other day while we were training. I asked them, if you had to, or if you could, jump into cold water, 50 degrees or less, and be in that water for 3 minutes every day, and that would guarantee you an extra 10 years of life, would you do it? And out of the, let's see, I had 28 on that day. Excuse me, out of the 28 people that I had that day, 3 said yes. 2 of those 3 said they would only just jump in and then get right back out. So one guy said he'd stay in for 3 minutes. The others said no, said they don't like the cold, that it would be too miserable, that it wouldn't be worth it. I was like, an extra 10 years? So then I bumped and I'm like, what if it was 20 years? They all still said no. So then I said, okay, you just got to jump in, get your head wet, and then get back out. More people were up for doing that. So it made me just kind of think like, is the discomfort of cold that deterring from people? I can feel this energy of someone wanting to give her opinion over here. Do you have something you want to contribute? The missus is over here. Keegs is over here. Doing her warm up for today. Feel free to chime in at any time. Would you take that? Would you jump in? 3 minutes.
Yes.
Every day gives you an extra 10 years of life.
Guaranteed.
You have to do it every day though.
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
Yes.
You're doing it? Okay. So
Because after a
that's
while,
awesome.
you lose it.
Yeah, you get used to it. So I'm going to show you one of my heroes in this world. I'm going to show you his progression of cold plunging in 3 days. I think it was 3 days. It could have been 2. But I'm going to show you his first response, which is an epic fail. It's great. And then I'm going to show you his latest one. And you'll be like, dude, the guy looks like he's been doing this a long time. And he's super, super comfortable. My point is if you see the value in this, you could make a commitment that I want to get better at this. And as he says in the videos, you got to find what works for you. And he found it pretty quickly. And it's been working really well. So let's just kind of dive in here, and I'll ask you the question now. And if you're saying no, let's go through all this. And then maybe at the end, maybe you change your mind a little bit. Now, to give you one extra little tidbit on that, there is pretty good value in literally just jumping into cold water and getting right back out. Like there is a cold water response to that. There's a cold water response to turning your shower cold for 3 seconds before you get out of the shower, which I do. I try to make it like 8 to 10 seconds. When I'm post like head shave, it feels great to turn the cold water on my head. But as soon as it hits the rest of my body, you get that response. That's actually the valued response. And you just tolerate that as long as you can. But showering kind of sucks because it's direct cold only where you can get the water. When you're plunged, you're just engulfed by it. Instantly, it hits everything all at once. You get out. There you go. Okay. So kind of keep that in mind. This is from Alex Corbett. I don't know Corbett. I don't know him, but I like this article. I thought it was well written and gave some really good points. So what are the benefits of the cold plunge? Enhances mood and focus. That's awesome. Reduces inflammation and muscle soreness. That's debatable. That's actually pretty debatable. Like my buddy Josh was here the other day and we were talking about that, and the person, I don't know his name, but the person that invented rest ice compression elevation, that person, after like 10 years and doing more research, came back and said, I should have removed rest and ice because it's not as valuable as we thought. Not moving your injury, especially if it's like a swollen ankle, a rolled ankle, a sprained joint, something, not moving it actually isn't beneficial. That makes everything worse. If you continue to move it under compression, and then if you have the opportunity to elevate it, that will reduce the swelling, helps pump all that fluid out of there, and it helps in the healing process. So the ice, in many cases, hasn't really shown, in a lot of research, hasn't really shown to do a whole lot in terms of helping the healing process. In some research, it showed to be a negative return that actually slowed things down. What it does do is numbs pain. And so if you are uncomfortable or in pain, you hurt your neck, you're having a migraine, whatever it is, I put an ice pack, a clay ice pack on the back of my neck. I lay in the dark for 10 minutes and my migraine is better. So it just kind of numbs the pain out, but is there actual reduction in anything or removal of anything to help in the healing process? That's pretty debatable, and the research lends towards no, that it actually doesn't. Your body does its own process of going through this swelling response and then transitioning and working its way through. Yes, Mrs. Linkul? Come close so they can hear you. You got to get closer to the mic.
But in this scenario, are they not asking or saying that it has reduction in the pain and all that because of the systemic reduction in inflammation that the ice bath is creating?
Say that again.
So in this instance, though, are they referring to the reduction in pain and muscle soreness in the sense, not in direct ice like you would in the rest thing, but
Yep.
in the systemic anti-inflammatory
Yes.
effect that it has? And that
Yes.
is why it may reduce pain and reduce discomfort,
Inflammation.
inflammation. It's
Yes,
because of the
it's aiding
systemic,
to the whole system.
yeah,
for
not
sure.
necessarily point.
So yes, but it's not like, hey, my elbow is swollen, so I'm going to plunge my entire body in here, and then when I get out, my elbow will feel better. The whole body response would be more therapeutic as opposed to.
Would aid in the elbow feeling better.
Correct. Yes. So is there like this is like site-specific fat reduction is not a real thing. Is there such thing as like site-specific ice inflammatory response reduction? We don't really know. Yeah, and then there's the debate for that too. Is it the first 24 to 48 hours? Yes. And then after that is no. We're still searching for answers on that. So it's up for debate. Okay. Improves recovery and physical performance. Okay. Improves immune system for sure. Improves resilience and stress management. Yes, that's a big one. And then accelerates metabolism and improves cold tolerance for sure. If you continue to do this every day, you're definitely going to, or at least every other day, you're definitely going to increase your tolerance for cold, which is great. Okay, one study showed that a cold plunge of 57 degrees Fahrenheit causes a 250% increase in dopamine levels and a 530% increase in noradrenaline levels that last for several hours, a 530% increase. That's at 57 degrees, which is not very cold, okay? I know that like if you just jumped into 57-degree water, you'd be like, holy hell, this is really cold. But when you continue to do plunges and you go down to like 50 degrees and then 48 and 46 and you keep working your way down, you start to recognize 57 is not cold at all. Like that's a very comfortable, I could just slide right into this thing, chill for 15 minutes and get out and be fine. You get that type of response from that, that's awesome. So that lends the question now, if I go colder, is it better? Do I get more? That research is still, to my knowledge, has not been seen. What has been seen is once you get down to the 30s, there's a very different cold tolerance that is going on. And you can get these responses in much shorter periods of time. So the Andrew Huberman and Peter Attia, Doctors Huberman and Dr. Attia both go through kind of a protocol they have of 11 to 15 minutes per week and at 2 to 5 minutes per bout that you go in. So as long as you're achieving those types of numbers, sub 50 degrees, then you're going to reap all these benefits. Well, this suggests that it doesn't even have to be 50 degrees. It could be a little bit warmer. Point being is you're going to need to find a range in this that is tolerable but still gives you this benefit. It's sub 57. I would suggest sub 50 to be able to find a range in there where you're like, I can get in 3 to 5 minutes and then you're good. I personally like it a little bit warmer. I like it in the mid to upper 40s, and I'll stay in longer. I feel a better response for me personally. I've done a 36 degree, a 35 degree plunge for 2.5, 3 minutes, and I'm shivering within the first 30 seconds, and it was miserable the whole time. Not that jumping into cold water is comfortable, but when you get into a 44 or 46 degree, you can slide into this, you get this initial shock of 15 to 30 seconds, your body starts to level out, you start to tolerate, and then you kind of just zone out and you have a numb over feeling of euphoria. Like you can kind of zone out and time is lost. At 36 degrees, you feel every second. Every fucking second of it is like, is this shit over with yet? Like, it was so uncomfortable. And with the other temperatures, I wouldn't shiver. I wouldn't really get to this point where I'm like, I'm ready to jump out of this tub. The entire time at 36 degrees, maybe the last 30 seconds, I kind of got to a point where I'm like, okay, this isn't awful. I don't, and that's what John likes. John likes it. My buddy John likes it. The colder the better, and he's the one that has the plunge at his house. I go over there. He'll make it as cold as possible. I mean, as close to 32 degrees, as close to this thing freezing over as he can get it. And he jumps in for 2 to 3 minutes, and he just deals with it. And he does that every day, every other day. I personally would rather have it at like 46 and sit in there for 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes, and then come out 2 or 3 times a week. Would be kind of ideal, right? Point being is, as you try this, try all these different variables. Your number one goal is make it lower than 57 degrees, and you'll definitely have these responses. Now, I don't know what a 250% increase in dopamine feels like. I do, but I don't know like, oh, that was 250 versus a 200. I don't know. All I know is you feel fantastic when you get out. A level of accomplishment for sure, but your body feels amazing. I feel this vigor and this like, yeah, you can conquer anything. You're thinking really clearly. Your energy levels are up. You're ready to go. It's something. I get some of my best work done right after that. John and I have our meetings. We plunge. We have a meeting. We go through all of our stuff and create these great plans. Like that hour, we're on fire. And then I come back here and I'll do recordings, and you could see like a whole different level in my energy in those videos because I'm all fired up from that experience. So I definitely feel all of that. And maybe that's part of the noradrenaline levels that are up high too. Again, I don't know a whole lot about that one either. But other suggested studies said it took up to 20 minutes in the cold plunge for compared to a group of people who took a 20-minute cold plunge in the ocean. To separate the group, they watched from the shore. Researchers looked at the mood questionnaire taken from both groups and found that only the cold plunge group improved in all categories. This cold group was reported to have a decrease in depression, fatigue, anger, tension, and confusion scores, and an increase in vigor, there you go, and self-esteem scores. That's pretty cool. So there was a couple of other studies I looked at ocean plunging. They literally just jump in the water. They don't know how cold it is. They just know it's cold. They get back out, and then they'll do these surveys and or have different assessments to check to see what kind of responses they get. And again, all these types of positive responses are seen across the board. Sub 57, long periods of time, a short period of time. The majority of the research also suggested that to have the best effects, your whole head needs to go, your entire body needs to go under. Some people will slide in up to their neckline and do their 2-3 minutes, whatever desired, and then dunk their head and then get out. And you'll feel this whole other response to now, I kind of leveled, and now that I put my head under, that whole thing just started, that whole response, that whole thing happens again. And then when you get out, it's like a high on top of a high, where others go right in, full body, full head, everything under, and then you just kind of neutralize from there. And when you get out, apparently there's a different feel or response. I have not done that one yet, where I go full all the way under. I haven't basically built up the guts to do it yet because it's really cold. It's really cold. All right, reduction in inflammation and muscle soreness. They had a couple studies on here that talked about that. The delayed onset muscle soreness, DOMS, refers to, a day or two after how sore your body is going to be from whatever the workout is that you did. Many of you can probably thank your physical therapist for introducing you to DOMS at some point in your rehab. Additionally, biomarkers for muscle tissue damage, creatine kinase were also shown to improve after the cold plunge. So basically, your delayed onset of muscle soreness probably wasn't as sore if you were plunging with this, as your body's ability to process that and rebuild is made much more efficient because of the plunged response. So that's where I think you're having a positive response to helping your body go through inflammation, maybe accelerating the process or encouraging it to move a little bit more rapidly. Increasing your performance in here as well, power, strength, and aerobic endurance. Athletes tested were performed for both groups for 24, 48, and 72 hours after their plunges. The cold groups had significantly better power, which refers to explosive movements such as sprinting or jumping or throwing, something along those lines, 24 hours compared to the control group. There were no significant improvements in strength or endurance scores after the cold plunge at any time in the 24 to 72 hours after compared to the control group. So basically they had groups that plunged and others that didn't, and then they tested their power, strength, and their aerobic endurance for the next 3 days. And those that did plunge had a significantly better power production. That's interesting. So your sprinters and your throwers and your power-based athletes, maybe you should be plunging 24 hours before a performance, before a competition, something along those lines. Continued discussions to be made here. It improves your immune system. Although it didn't look at a traditional cold plunge, this study in the Netherlands found that cold water exposure via cold showers led to less sick days taken at work. Over 3,000 participants were randomized into two groups, only a warm shower group and then another one that ended with 30 to 90 seconds of cold water. Results show that the group that added the 30 seconds to 90 seconds of cold water took 29% less sick days compared to their warm shower counterparts. Additionally, there were 54% reduction in sick days in participants also regularly exercised. Okay, that's cool. In addition to their cold showers. So if you're exercising and you're doing cold plunges, or in this case, adding just a cold component to your shower, which again, I feel like is fairly miserable because you're only exposing parts to your body that the water is hitting, where when you're in the plunge, it hits everything at once. So your face gets cold, and then your chest gets cold, and then your parts get cold, and then you turn, and you're like, oh, you get that whole response again. I'd rather just be engulfed in all the cold and have my entire body respond equally at the same time. But if you don't have access to a plunge, or it gets super pricey to try to buy ice enough to drop water to 57 degrees or lower and fill your bathtub, unless you live in a hotel, and you got your own ice machine, that shit's gonna add up. So probably wouldn't look into that. But even just the shower, okay, 30% reduction in sick days, that's cool. And 55%, 54% if you exercised as well. Negative effects of the cold plunge. Unfortunately, benefits of the cold plunge come with a few adaptive trade-offs. Short-term recovery research has shown that long-term use of cold plunge immediately after intense exercise can actually reduce strength and muscle growth. Aerobic endurance, however, does not seem to be negatively impacted after the plunge. So this kind of lends towards the discussion too, should you plunge prior to exercise or resistance training or any whatever fitness you're doing, or should you do it after? Dr. Huberman says that you want to do it 90 minutes after exercise or before, so your body has an adaptive period where you're not doing it immediately. But then you'll see some people, like Joe Rogan as an example, he does his 3 minutes in like 36 or 35 degree cold plunge. He does 2 to 3 minutes, gets out, dries off, goes right into, I think he does 100 push-ups and 100 body weight squats to re-warm his body, and then does his whole workout immediately. That is part of his wake-up process, and he feels that immediate dopamine rush and all that carries over into his workout and makes it a more beneficial response. He'll also cold plunge before he goes on stage. He kind of talks about that too. Being, that his club is right there in Austin where he lives, he can cold plunge, get out, get dressed, head to the club, and within an hour of being, submerged in 30-degree water, is on stage telling jokes and feels like he's got that high level, that endorphin rush, everything that we talked about earlier. So to each their own. Everybody, kind of has a different response to this and whatever is making them most efficient. But what does the research suggest? In this one, if you are training for muscle growth and or strength development, that maybe you shouldn't be cold plunging prior to your resistance training. Maybe you should be doing that after, which, in warm environments is always inviting, but in cold environments, that sucks. Like you're all warm and sweaty and and now jumping into the cold plunge, maybe that's enjoyable, but then I don't know. I have a hard time being cold and getting into the cold. So it's like, I guess I would rather exercise first, make my body warm and sweaty, and then get in. That lends one more thing too. Make sure you shower or rinse your body off before you get into a plunge, because you're probably going to be sharing it with other people. We don't want all of your sweat in there and then, I get in there afterwards. Anybody that's putting any lotions or ointments or medications or anything like that on your body as well, might want to keep that in mind, especially if you're going over to your buddy's house. Sorry, John. I always come over when I'm all sweaty. I'm just kidding. I always shower. All right. When should you cold plunge? Gaining strength or muscle long-term, you should plunge before your workout on a different day. Okay. Before your workout or on a different day. So if you're going to do it before 90 minutes, maybe that window, you get up and do it. and then 90 minutes later, then start to do your exercise. If goal is to reduce soreness after a workout, you should plunge right after exercising. There you go. If your goal is to recover quickly and perform better, you should have another event coming up in 1 to 2 days, like a sports tournament or something. You should plunge right after the exercise. If your goals are or for an endurance sport, you can plunge at any time, as that has had not a positive nor negative response to your performance. And then if you are only interested in the mental benefits, you can plunge at any time. So with that being said, let's take a look at one of my favorite people on earth, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, Stone Cold, the reason that I love I grew up with Stone Cold. Stone Cold was my guy. I was literally voted in high school most likely to become a professional wrestler in the yearbook. Now, I couldn't find my yearbook, but I brought these awesome photos. And look at that guy. Look at that guy posing in his Chicago Blackhawks sweatshirt, classy, with his ankle-high Reeboks white socks, cotton shorts, and his discus. What a tool bag. And then over here, my intention was to go to Nevada, but before my senior year, Nevada cut their men's track program. So I settled on Sacramento State, which was awesome because it led me to you. And there I am wearing my Letterman jacket. Years of football and track got me all those awesome medals, big fish, little pond. It was a fun time. But I was voted most likely to become a professional wrestler because I wore a Stone Cold Steve Austin t-shirt literally every day, my junior and senior year to school. I was never seen in anything other than a Stone Cold Steve Austin t-shirt. I had more than 20 Stone Cold Steve Austin t-shirts. Thanks, Mom, for buying all of those for me. A very proud moment in my life. Okay, here we go. Here's Stone Cold, his first attempt. Everybody ready? Excuse the cursing. Sorry. Okay, you should be hearing this, but in case you're not, let me kill that. He is cursing, and he is very uncomfortable. He starts every video by saying his name. Hey, everybody, this is Stone Cold Steve Austin coming from Broken Skull Ranch. And then he tells you whatever he's going to do. He takes 5 attempts to say what I just said because he's so cold and cannot get comfortable enough to even to get his body in there. He forgets the name of the brand he has to look right there. What's this thing called again? Oh yeah, Renew. You could see he's terribly uncomfortable, okay? Finally gets himself to the point where he's ready to submerge and go all the way under and can only go up to about his chest, like sternum height. And when he gets there, he can't, as you'll see here, as he finally starts to go in, and he is just MFing like, Stone Cold Steve Austin normally would. He makes it about, here he goes, yep, son of a bitch. Oh, God damn it. He's just screaming, and he's out. 11 seconds. He made it 11 seconds, and he's done. Okay? So there's Stone Cold's first attempt at a cold plunge. Okay? Awesome. So then he comes back, and I'm running out of time here, so I'm not going to show you the second one. He comes back, and he suffers through a second attempt. Okay? And he makes it, but he's really, really uncomfortable. You can tell that he didn't love it, but he's getting better. That was a day later. And now this is him yesterday, okay? And he's got an Alice in Chains song going on here, but he comes in, full dunk, screams a little bit, checks his timer, 15 seconds. Watch the eye contact with the camera. Boom, right there. 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and he makes it the next 2.5 minutes just like that. Completely zenned out. Crushed it. I mean, that's pretty badass in 48 hours and 3 attempts, to go from what you saw on that first one, just screaming, 13 seconds, whatever he made, and then out to this. Okay? Goes to show you, number one, he kind of talks about how he called a couple of his buddies that are doing this and they gave him some advice, but you saw the immediate plunge, full body, everything in, just get that initial shock, okay? And then, he's already made it a minute, right? That first initial shock, and then 15, 20 seconds, you start to just kind of neutralize out. And now you can see how kind of zenfully, peaceful his mind goes to. Now, reaping all the benefits, everything that we just talked about, 2 to 3 minutes, and he's out every day, every other day. As long as you are getting, over 11-ish minutes of, of your cold plunging in or cold showering, even at a basic of 30 to 90 seconds every time you shower, there are some great benefits to be had. So go get a bag of ice or a couple of them, fill up that bathtub, give it a shot. And if you like it, maybe start researching some local companies or some of the international companies that make these full units, and you're checking for ozone and, oxygenation and filtration and all this, because if you just fill up your thing outside, a tub outside, and fill it with water and just jump in every day, it's going to get gross. There's going to get slimy stuff at the bottom. You're going to end up having, go see your doctor for more disease control than you are going to reap the benefits of the ice plunge. So you want to do this in a good, clean, safe way if that's going to be something that you want to do on the regular. I personally don't have any experience building those, but a lot of my friends do in building their own and the filtration and the air and all that. But you could also buy ones like Stone Cold had right there, where that whole thing, he just plugged it in, filled it up, and away you go. No maintenance, it's super, super simple. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this. Comments, questions, hit me up down below. If not, please subscribe, like the video, share, help us grow our community. We sure do appreciate it. Much love and appreciation, all of you. And until next time, continue to fight your good fight against sarcopenia. Take care.